Very few race car drivers in the world can say that they have competed in Sebring, Daytona, and Le Mans. Even fewer can say that they are tennis champions. And out of this tiny group of elite individuals, only one can make the claim that they have starred on an episode of Whiskey and Wheels. We have one such legend here with us today, and his name is Jack Griffin.
Great to be here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you,
Very
sir.
generous introduction.
I think it was pretty accurate. So earlier today, Jack took us for a ride in this gorgeous 1989 Speedster and also this 991 GT3 Touring, which we'll show you later in the program, and he's also going to be giving us a tour of his incredible car collection. But for now, we're going to get into some of this whiskey here, and Jack's got some great stories to tell us. All right, Jack, now I know you're not much of a whiskey guy. I know you told me you're really more of a wine guy. So I selected a few whiskeys that kind of have a wine-like quality. They're very smooth, they're very neutral, they're not going to be harsh or smoky. Do you want me to pick where we should start, or is there one of these you'd like to try?
You know, honestly, like I said, I'm really not much of a drinker at all, so I don't even know these particular brands.
Okay, so we'll drink just a little bit just so you can get the taste. We're going to start with this. This is Glenlivet 12-year illicit still. This is actually the one I figure you would like the most. It's the most wine-like out of all of them, and it's a very good, easy drinking scotch. Do you want ice?
Sure.
Okay.
Who knows? I may become a whiskey drinker after this.
You know what? I mean, there's no shortage of car collectors who also love whiskey.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like the two kind of go hand in hand.
Later in life, you know, you should experience everything. But
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and if you want to try all three, we can definitely do that.
Well, I would not want to carry it too far.
Okay. Well, I'll give you just a little bit here.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, this might alter my stories a great deal.
Well, you know what? That can make things a little more entertaining for everybody.
Maybe I won Le Mans, who knows?
After 3 of these, there's no doubt. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, so I gave Jack 5 questions in advance. We're gonna drink some of this whiskey and we're gonna see where the stories go. All right, first question, manual or automatic?
Well, that is a great question, and everyone has their answer. For me, to have fun, I love shifting the gears, and they make automatics, as you know, these days that are more efficient. They shift better than you can shift manually. I'm old school, I just hadn't gotten into that. So I love manuals.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. All of the cars I own are manuals. What is it specifically that makes driving a manual more fulfilling to you?
I like to be in control of when I'm going to shift. If I want to take it to 7,000 or 9,000 RPMs, I don't want the transmission telling me when I should shift, okay? When I was driving race cars, of course, those were, manual. To me, if you're going to have fun with a car, it's got to be manual.
Okay, all right. What is the best car you've ever owned?
Wow, that's a tough one. I'd say if I only had one Porsche, it would be my 997.2 Carrera S. That car does it all very well.
What is the worst car you've ever owned?
That one is pretty darn easy. When I first got out of college, I had no clue what I wanted to do or what I could even do. And I got a job selling office machines. So I was required to drive a station wagon in my job. It was horrible. I had a 1965 Ford station wagon. Oh, it was horrible. I could not wait to get a different job so I could drive a different car. Every day when I got in that car, I had a big frown on my face. That was torture. It's
interesting how much the car you're driving can affect your general mood or your general day.
There is absolutely no question about that. And I'm sure a lot of people are the same way. My mood is affected by the car, and even further, if it's a really clean car, if it's just been detailed, if I've washed it, so forth, life is a lot better when you're driving a car like that. Yeah.
All right, what's the most exciting thing you've ever done in a car?
Driving a race car at Le Mans is pretty darn exciting.
That would have been my guess.
You also have thrown in the pressure of trying to do well versus performance. You don't want to overdo it and totally screw up and crash and kill yourself or something like that. But you know, driving race cars, clearly that was the most exciting thing. My car never caught on fire, and no excitement stories in that respect.
Oh, good.
I've had a few incidents that you might say. Crashed in the 12 hours of Sebring into a concrete wall. I guess you would classify that as exciting.
But not
It was
the good kind.
It was a terrible day.
All right. Is there another car you would like to add to your collection?
You know, I probably have too many in terms to really enjoy. I've never owned a Cayman or a GT4. I think that would be a really cool car, it'd be a fun car.
What is your favorite car movie?
Oh gosh, you know, there are so many good ones and there's some horrible ones, but I would have to say Steve McQueen in Le Mans. I mean, you know, that was filmed in the early 70s, or maybe it was 1970. That meant a lot to me because I ended up driving in that race. And it was actually a fairly accurate movie in terms of depicting what it's really like to do that. And I'll never forget the first time at Le Mans, the first time that I got in the race car, I looked up and I saw the clock that was in the opening scenes of the movie Le Mans. It's still, the clock is still there. And that was a surreal experience to look up, and I had to kind of pinch myself and wonder, am I really driving a race car, or am I sitting in a seat at a movie theater? Also, I really enjoyed Rush, which was James Hunt's story, and also Ford versus Ferrari, which was it was essentially about Le Mans.
All right, great. So you have competed in some of the most prestigious races in the world, and I'm going to do my best not to pummel you with too many questions on that, but there's a lot that I really would like to know. So just from learning about you and doing research about you, it sounds like you didn't so much go out of your way to get involved in these races. It sounds like, did you have a friend that kind of pulled you into all of them?
Well, yeah, exactly. It really kind of just fell in my lap because I happened to be somewhere at the right time and I was open to it. And I always say, you know, if you show up, fate has a chance to happen. I happened to show up in a certain situation, and it happened. One thing led to another, and I ended up driving at Le Mans, which I would have never. It was never my ambition. It was never even a fantasy, okay? And I would have never, in my wildest dreams, anticipated that I would actually be doing that. But it happened, and it happened. I drove there twice, 2 years, successive years.
Had you raced a few times before Le Mans, or was that one of your earlier races?
My first drive at Le Mans, I had raced in 5 or 6 races, okay? Obviously lower level races. I'd raced at Daytona 3 times, raced at a track in Toronto called Mossport. So I'd driven like 5 or 6 races, and then I did not plan on driving at Le Mans. It happened when my friend who got me into racing, he had an opportunity to drive at Le Mans. I went over just to be in his pit, which I thought would be really incredible opportunity to go to Le Mans. I'd never been before, and for some crazy reason that I can't even explain, I took my driving suit. And then before the first day of practice, we ran into someone that told us a French team was looking for a driver. They had 2 drivers and they needed a third, and they didn't speak English, and this guy agreed to be our interpreter. I was freaked out because here's this potential opportunity, and I knew that I was not really, I didn't really have the experience that I should be doing something like this. I mean, you know, prudence would say to thank the gentleman, thank you very much, it's not for me.
You would have spent every day of the rest of your life regretting not doing it.
That is actually what ran through my mind. It ran through my mind that for the rest of my life, if the conversation ever came up about racing, would I say, oh, I could have raced at Le Mans? What a lousy thing to say, you know? That would be total BS. So I thought, well, you know, I may die, but I've got to take a chance. I've got to go for it.
So you are in another team's garage. Are you part of the pit crew, or are you just hanging out and watching?
Oh, just hanging around watching.
Do you remember what team it was?
It was my best friend that got me into racing. His team, Davidson Racing Team, based here in Dallas.
So you are hanging out in the garage, in the pit garage of a friend who owns a race team, and these French individuals just walk up to you and ask them to drive on their team for Le Mans?
Not exactly that way. There was a fellow from Belgium, and my friend knew this Belgian driver. Okay, the Belgian driver told us that this French team was looking for a driver, and he would make the introduction for us if we wanted to. And so we said, oh yeah, sure. And see, my friend was a little bit uneasy about the race himself. Well, he wanted me to jump in just like he was, you know.
Did he have more experience than you?
Oh, he had a lot more experience, but never at Le Mans.
Okay.
Le Mans was such a totally different thing.
Yeah.
Higher speeds, European drivers mostly, which for the most part had a different mentality, kind of a bullfighter mentality, you know.
Are they more aggressive, or?
Very much more aggressive, yeah. You know, a lot of those people, they have the attitude of, that's a good way to die in a race car. That would not be me, you know. So I had an international license, an FIA license, but in that race you have to have a certain grade of international license just below a Formula One level license. I didn't have a license that qualified me for the race. We had to scramble around, embellish my experience, and that was the days before the internet. So it wasn't quite easy to check on someone's story. I'd say that I embellished things, and so forth. Both to the French team that were looking for the driver, they didn't want a raw rookie driving their car, so I had to kind of make it sound a little more, enticing. So we were successful in doing that. They had me get in the car and do a few laps, which I figured that would probably end the whole escapade right there. But I did, I guess, okay. And so all of a sudden, I'm driving for this French team in a French prototype.
So the car you drove was that Rondeau M84?
It was, yeah, 84 and 85, but the first year it was 84.
Okay.
And it was called a Rondeau with a Ford Cosworth motor.
Were you able to complete the race?
No. I was in the car in about the 9th hour, going down the straightaway, which at that time was a 4-mile straightaway, and you're flat out for 4 miles. So I was in the car, driven one shift. Our shifts were about an hour and 20 minutes.
So every hour and 20 minutes, you're switching drivers?
Switching drivers.
And there was 3 people on your team?
Exactly.
Did anyone ever sleep?
Not really.
Okay.
Not really. A little bit. You may doze off a little bit.
So you've got 2 hours and 40 minutes before you have to get in the car again?
Well, yes, but actually, after an hour and 20 minutes of resting, then you need to be in the pit in case the car needs to come in for an emergency or something like that. So you always have a driver in the pit ready in case the car comes in.
Let me ask you, because you know how time can pass at relevant speeds depending on what you're doing. How long did it feel to be racing in Le Mans for 1 hour and 20 minutes in that car?
It actually went by very fast because you're really carrying a lot of speed. It's so intense, your concentration level, you're concentrating every second. You feel a blink, like your eyes are going to blink, and you hesitate. You don't want to even blink your eye.
Wow.
And you don't really have time to think about consequences or fear or whatever. You're just very busy, focused on what you're doing.
Is it just physically exhausting?
Well, you're so high on adrenaline, you don't really feel exhausted at the time. After the race is over, it's pretty exhausting. But at the time, you're so amped up.
Okay, so you ran into mechanical issues your first trip in Le Mans, that ended it? We
did, yeah. Like I say, it was in the 9th hour. I was driving the car, going down the straightaway.
You were driving when it happened?
I was driving when it happened. I was flat out. And this car, Ford Cosworth motor, basically a Formula One engine, we shifted at 9,000 RPMs, and top speed was 215 miles an hour down the straightaway. I was flat out on the straightaway, and it was a 5-speed. We shifted from 4th to 5th at 170 miles an hour, which is kind of interesting. But so I was flat out, and all of a sudden the engine died, and the accelerator pedal was stuck to the floor.
Oh.
I had no idea what had happened, but I pulled off the track into the grassy area by the Armco, and people were lined up, spectators were lined up, down the Armco and everything. And I coasted to a stop, and the car wouldn't start, it wouldn't even turn over. The engine was totally frozen up. Mechanics are not allowed to work on the car on the track, but the driver, if the driver can get it going back to the pit, maybe there's, we're okay. So I got the engine cover off the back of the car, which wasn't easy, and there were about 100 pieces I was looking at. The motor had just grenaded. You hear the term engine grenaded. Well, this one grenaded. It was in so many pieces. They were everywhere. So clearly, we were done.
Once you realized that it was just over, what was the feeling?
I was really disappointed, and I just thought, it was a great experience, but it would have been great to finish the race.
Right.
I had earlier that year raced in the Daytona 24-hour and finished. Even we had a 2-hour breakdown, but we did finish the race. And that's a great experience. When you take the checkered flag of a 24-hour race, you're just totally exhausted, but gosh, it's like, I'm sure, like climbing Mount Everest or something, Mm-hmm. So I was really bummed. But that happens. Even though I was really disappointed, it was like a bit of a sigh of relief. It's like, I did it. I raced at Le Mans.
And you survived?
Yeah, I survived.
All your limbs are working. And
what a great experience it was. Even though I didn't finish, like, wow, I raced at Le Mans more than I ever would have fantasized about. So it was a mixed feeling.
Did you race in the identical car in both races?
Same brand, different model.
Okay.
Different model. The next year, and I never intended to race again at Le Mans. For my experience level and so forth, I wasn't really willing to take the kind of risk of dying in a race car, because that was not my career.
Well, you know what, in a way, good for you for not willing to throw everything away on something like that, because I think a lot of race car drivers would be willing to do that.
Well, I have 3 sons that are grown now, but they were young. They were young kiddos back then. And, you stop and think, is like, I'm driving a race car. It's not my career. It's kind of a selfish thing to some degree. It's like, if I'm killed, the kids, their fathers died driving a race car, you know? But after I did Le Mans one time, it's like, man, this is too dangerous. I'll never do this again. However, the next year, I get a phone call from the team owner in France, and he asked me to come back and drive again. I was so flattered that I agreed to do it. And all this thing about I'll never do it again went out the window. It's like, I got to do it again. So this time, but he needed 2 drivers, and I got my friend who had driven the March Buick. I got him to come as well. So the 2 of us drove together.
So it didn't take any coaxing. It's like he said Le Mans, and you said, I am there.
I had to. Yeah, it's like, here again, it's like, I have another chance to do it again. Am I going to turn it down? No, I couldn't turn it down.
Well, how'd the second time around go? Were there mechanical issues, or were you able to finish?
Unfortunately, mechanical issue. I was not in the car at the time. My friend actually was in the car, and the suspension broke. And he was on the straightaway, and he lost the ability to steer the car.
Ooh.
Now that's a very scary situation. He was able to somehow make it back to the pit at a slow speed, but they could not fix the car.
Oh.
It was so that was it. And it was only like 3 or 4 hours into the race.
Okay.
I'd driven one shift, but we had several days of practice qualifying. We qualified about mid of the middle pack. There was Mario Andretti, Michael Andretti, Derek Bell. I mean, Jackie Ickx. I mean, the best drivers in the world, and then us. And the car, was not as developed in later years. It was the overall winner in 80, but this was in 84, 85.
And the technology moved very quickly.
Technology was better in the other cars, and they had factory support and so forth. The developer of the car, Gene Rondo, he was there. We met him, but he was actually driving in the race in a Porsche. So
how does that even work? That kind of tells you something about his cars.
Right.
A lot of people, and I'm one of them, feel like Le Mans is the most prestigious race that a person can compete in. So to someone who's not done a lot of racing, or to someone who's never raced, how would you describe the experience of racing in Le Mans?
Well, it's a lot of things mixed into one. I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, I bet that was fun." I would not describe it as fun. Really intense. You could die. It's in the back of your mind, but it's not on the forefront. Really, really exhilarating, exciting, adrenaline rush. Very busy. All of the qualifying, practice, everything is very orchestrated, organized. You're required actually to practice for so many certain period of time driving at night. They want to make sure that you can be okay driving at night, because that's a lot of the track is not lit at all. But the actual race itself and the times when you're in the car, in the pit or whatever, those were very serious and really anxious times.
So with Le Mans, you didn't win Le Mans, but you won Le Mans tennis?
I raced at Le Mans and I came home with a trophy. That's my story.
Okay, all right.
I was on a tennis scholarship in college, so I was a tennis player and played competitively a lot. And I was nationally ranked and played in tournaments all over the country and so forth. The first year at Le Mans, I saw a poster that advertised a tennis tournament for the drivers and the press. And I asked someone what that was about, and they explained what it was. The drivers could play tennis, and on Friday, the day before the race, it was an off day, no one practiced, and during that day, they did things like the tennis tournament and a golf tournament for the drivers also. So the next year when I raced at Le Mans in 1985, I took my tennis gear. So I entered the tennis tournament for the drivers and the press, and I knew I was unlikely to be terribly competitive in the race, but I was damn sure going to win the tennis tournament, okay? It was fun because I played against Derek Bell, Bob Wallach, who was on the pole at the race, who's a French guy. Early in the tournament, I wanted to make sure that there was no question I was going to beat these guys. And so when I played against Derek Bell and Bob Wallach, I beat them easily, and I made sure that I really put them away, okay? And Bob Wallach was actually a very good athlete, and I think he usually won the tennis tournament. Well, I beat him easily, and he got really upset. So he came to the net actually at the end of the match, and he was serious. He was a French guy, and he said, "I'm going to get even with you on the track tomorrow." And I thought, "Hey, pal, don't get upset. You're not going to beat me playing tennis."
I mentioned earlier that we went out for a really fun ride in the Speedster, so we're going to cut to that, and then we're going to get right back to the interview. So how long have you owned this for? Squirrel.
Squirrel. It was almost his unlucky day. I actually bought this new in 1989, so I've owned it 33 years.
Oh wow! How often do you drive it?
You know, when I first bought it, I drove it a fair amount. Went on some rallies and tours and that sort of thing. Then in later years, I started driving it less because it became obvious it was going to be a real collector piece, and I didn't want to just put a tremendous number of miles. And the other thing is that it's kind of a fair weather car.
Right.
It does have a top, but they call it an emergency top, and it will, if it rains or whatever, the top definitely will leak. Now we're gonna go through a little fun little route.
Okay, cool.
We go through a tunnel here. Being the Speedster, it was meant to somewhat replicate the idea of the 50s era 356 Speedster. Kind of a lightweight, minimal. In fact, it does not even have power windows. It's got manual windows.
Oh wow, look at that.
Yeah. Here we go.
Welcome back to Whiskey and Wheels. So Jack's been telling us a lot of great stories about pretty much anything automotive related, but I want to switch gears and talk about whiskey here. Now, are you familiar with what's called tasting notes?
I am not.
Okay, so there are people out there who have very well-developed palates, and they have apparently gone around the world and have tasted everything in them.
Oh, wow.
And they will drink alcohol and they will write up very detailed description of all of the flavors they have tasted when they drank something. And it is stuff that is many times not even food related products. So I thought it would be kind of fun if we went over like professional written tasting notes for this particular drink here, and we see if we can actually taste anything that they taste.
Oh, God.
All right. So I've pulled up the tasting notes from a website called Whiskey Lifestyle. Now, when people write the tasting notes, there's 3 different categories. The first is called the nose, the second is called the taste, and the third is called the finish. Now, for the nose, and we're gonna try this, what you're supposed to do,
Oh, stick your nose in it.
well, you inhale it,
Ah.
and then hold it in your mouth for a minute, and then you slowly breathe it out your nose. And apparently, if you do this, you can taste all kinds of things.
Oh,
So-
does it cause you all kinds of thoughts?
I don't know.
I don't know.
think
This is
these
pretty interesting.
These people have incredibly sensitive palates.
Wow.
So breathe it in, hold it for a second, and then slowly exhale out your nose. Okay, did you taste anything?
Absolutely not.
Okay. I didn't taste very much, but this is what this person claims. And you tell me if you tasted anything, and this is just on the nose. Pears.
Pear?
Did you taste pear?
I did not taste pear.
Did you taste green apple?
I did not.
Did you taste a nice drop of honey?
Oh, I think I missed the honey.
What about the oranges?
No, none of that.
Any caramel fudge?
Oh, no.
Okay. Nougat?
None.
A hint of peach juice?
Oh, my God, no.
Lemons?
No.
I didn't get any of that either.
You didn't either?
No.
Well, that
no,
makes
I
me feel
didn't.
better.
Okay.
Maybe I need a lot of practice.
So next we're gonna do the taste. So just take a drink, hold it in for a couple seconds, and maybe think about any of the flavors that you can taste. And then we will compare to what this individual says and see if we can taste anything that they did.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep.
All right, cheers.
Cheers.
All right, you ready?
Yeah,
Okay. Did you taste pears?
I did not.
A hint of lemons?
No.
Toffee?
No.
Salted caramel?
No.
A tropical note from pineapple?
Oh, God, no.
Peach?
Nope.
Vanilla?
Maybe a little vanilla.
All right.
Maybe a little vanilla.
Nougat?
No.
Almonds?
No.
Cinnamon?
Maybe a little cinnamon.
Cloves?
No.
I maybe tasted like a tiny bit of pear and maybe a tiny bit of vanilla. Maybe. I mean, it's good.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I'm not getting anything that this individual is writing.
Yeah, I mean, my hat's off to him for getting all of that. That had to be quite an experience for him.
Okay, so last is the finish. This is after you've taken a drink and the flavor that lingers in your mouth. So just take a little drink and see if you can taste any
okay.
lingering flavors. Okay. Did you taste vanilla? Or do you taste vanilla now?
No.
What about pears?
No, definitely not pears.
What about cinnamon?
Maybe a little, yeah, smoky cinnamon, yeah.
Okay. What about cloves?
No.
Okay, me neither. Don't feel bad about not being able to taste any of that because I don't think 99% of the population can. So you raced in Daytona. Did you race in Daytona once or twice?
I raced it in the 24-hour twice, but I raced in some other races at Daytona as well.
Did you drive a 935 in any of those races?
I did.
Did you drive it twice?
I drove the 935 probably 5 times. I did the Daytona 24-hour in 935. I did the LA Times Grand Prix at Riverside, California in a 935. I did Sebring 12-hour. I did Road America in the 935. That was really, really a phenomenal car.
Yeah, I mean the 935 is one of the most legendary and most successful race cars ever. I mean, it's got to be in the top 3 or 4 most successful race cars ever, and I know they're selling for millions of dollars now. And when you first told me that you drove a 935, I mean, that really stuck out to me. I mean, that's pretty exciting. So I know that you drove the JLP2.
Yep.
Did you drive it all 5 times?
Yeah, same car.
So how did you get the opportunity to do that?
First time I drove it was in the Daytona 24-hour, and I had bought a race car, a 911 RSR. So I had anticipated driving my RSR at Daytona 24-hour. So we get to the race, and my friend, he said, "Jack, why don't you drive the 935? One of his drivers didn't show up or something like that. I'd never driven the 935. I knew it was a beast.
Was that like twice as powerful as the most powerful car you've ever driven at that
by
point?
Far. My RSR had about 320 horsepower. The 935 had 800.
Yeah, it gets up there.
And it's like, whoa. But here again, am I going to turn it down? No, I'm not going to turn it down. I'm going to drive the 935. So I called a friend of mine who had raced a little bit, and I got him to come to Daytona to take my place in the RSR. And so I jumped in the 935. It took a little while to get used to the speed. And that was mostly it, just getting used to going that fast. But at Daytona, we were probably maybe a little over 200 miles an hour. And it was kind of a difficult car to drive because it was a 4-speed gearbox and had as a twin turbo and a lot of turbo lag. So you put the accelerator pedal on the floor and you'd count, like 1, 2, 3, and then all of a sudden, you had nothing, and then it was like a rocket sled. You're going down, passing everything in sight.
So did you have to compensate for that turbo lag on turns? Did you have to mathematically figure out, do everything 4 seconds?
It wasn't mathematically. It was by the seat of your pants. And you had to make sure, you had to time your front wheels being straight with the boost coming on. If you had not completed your turn and the boost came on, you're guaranteed to do something really bad off the track. And so that happened to me one time. I tried to time it in a turn where my wheels were totally straight and the boost came on, and I had not totally completed the turn, and the boost came on, and I went off the track doing donuts, scared the crap out of me.
Wow.
And made sure that never happened again. But in the turns, it's very difficult to go in with the boost on because you'll be going so fast. And then you're getting passed by a lot of slower cars in the turn, but then you rocket past them coming out of the turn, So it's a real unusual experience. There's, some really great drivers, Derek Bell, Al Holbert, some of the great guys. They had a lot more experience driving a 935 than I did. They could time it a lot better than I could. But with a 4-speed gearbox, you're never in the right gear. But once you get it going straight, and when that boost comes on, and you don't need your rearview mirror because no one's going to be passing you because you are just really flying. But actually, once I got used to driving it, it was very comfortable.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed driving the 935.
What's your favorite car that you ever raced?
Yeah, I'd say the 935.
Okay. So you mentioned Seinfeld earlier. Now, it's my understanding you were on an episode of Seinfeld, but weren't on an episode of Seinfeld?
Yeah, that was another kind of a fun experience. During a trip to LA, I was invited to spend a day. Went to his Santa Monica airport where he keeps his cars, saw his car collection, and then went to the studio where they were filming an episode. And it was really kind of a fun experience just being there and watching it happen. And I was sitting kind of like we were sitting, and I was told, that Jerry would like to see pictures of my cars and things. So I had pictures of my cars, and while they were setting up sets and stuff like that. Jerry was sitting on one side and Kramer was sitting on the other side, and we were trading pictures back and forth, you know, looking at pictures of my cars. And then they'd get up and film a scene and so forth. And it was his apartment, which you see in the TV series, was 5 feet away from where we were sitting. It was just like right there. And so later in the day, oh gosh, probably about 7 o'clock in the evening actually, Jerry's assistant, Carol Brown, she said, Jack, you need to go down the hallway, the second door to the left or something like that, you know. And I said, what's up, you know? And she said, well, just go over there. So I didn't know what was going on, so I went, and it was makeup. And this lady said, okay, sit down, you know, we're gonna. And I said, I don't really know what you're doing. She said, well, you're going to be in a scene. I said, oh my God. And the wardrobe people, they brought out something for me to put on, you know.
What was it?
It was a jacket, you know, for me to just put on.
Like a sports coat?
But it was a scene where Kramer had befriended some Japanese guys, tourists, and they ran out of money. And they didn't have a place to stay because they couldn't afford a hotel.
He puts them in the drawers, right?
He puts them in his chest of drawers.
Good night, Mr. Tanaka.
Good night.
Good night, Mr. O.
Good night.
Good night, Mr. Yamaguchi.
They created this chest of drawers, this very large chest of drawers. The carpenters built that, you know, while I was standing there or sitting there. And so these guys would actually crawl in, and you know, I was sitting there watching it and everything, and they said, okay, we're going to have a scene where the Japanese guys, they want to buy a cowboy hat in a department store, and Kramer is going to be there showing them cowboy hats, and you're going to be a customer just walking by. So we did the scene, and I'm walking, and I'm of course nervous as can be. And then they said, "Oh, Kramer couldn't say his lines." They redid it like 3 times.
Like he couldn't remember his lines.
He either couldn't remember them or he kept screwing them up.
Okay.
Okay. And so,
They're like, Jack, we're gonna need you to fill in for Kramer.
well, Carol, Jerry's assistant, said, you know, this happens all the time because Kramer always screws up his lines. He can't remember. He's just an odd person. And he'll walk up against a wall and start talking to the wall. Things like that. You know, he's just bizarre. They did the scene like 3 times. Kramer screwed it up every time. And then finally, Kramer said, I can't do it. I can't do it. They got with the writers and they huddled and they came back with new lines, basically, and did the scene. The episode actually came out maybe 6 weeks or so later or something like that. And Carol Brown, Jerry's assistant, called me before the episode and said, Jack, I got some bad news.
Oh, no.
What's the bad news, Carol? Well, you got edited out, you know, but we're sending you a tape of your scene with you in it. We're sending you that. Oh, okay, thanks.
So Jerry invited you down to did he invite you down to come be part of the studio, or?
Well, what happened is I had a car at the time. I had a lot of Porsches at the time. And of course, Jerry's a Porsche fanatic. And Jerry's favorite color is blue. I had a 356 Speedster. At the time, I had 4 356 Speedsters. One of them was all original blue. And it was on the cover of a magazine. Jerry saw that cover, got in touch with the publisher of the magazine, who knew me, calls me and says, someone wants your phone number because they saw your car on the cover of the magazine. And I said, well, I really don't want to sell the car. And he said, well, you might want to talk to this guy. It's Jerry Seinfeld. So I said, well, okay, you give Jerry my number. He can call me. So actually, his assistant, Carol Brown, called me. And we had a nice long conversation. And so Carol said, well, let me know when you're coming to LA, and we'd love for you to come by.
So that was it? There was no, he didn't ask you to sell the car or anything? She just said, let me know when you're coming to LA?
Well, no, she talked to me about the car. And I said, I don't want to sell it.
She's like, Jerry wants to buy it.
Yeah.
Did you ask how much you wanted to pay or anything?
No,
or you were just
I didn't get into that. Yeah, I didn't get into that.
That was very committed.
Yeah. So when I went to LA, I didn't know what to expect, you know, but Carol said, meet me at the Santa Monica airport. we're going to first see Jerry's cars, which was kind of fun. He had several hangars full of cars.
Wow.
So then she said, well, we're going to go to the studio and you're going to meet Jerry and you're going to meet the writers and you're going to meet
All this happened just because he saw your car in a magazine. He's
Yep.
like, Carol, I want to buy his car. Get him on the phone.
Yep.
Carol's like, he said no. He's like, bring him out here. I'm going to give him the first class treatment.
It was one of those, fortunate, right place at the right time, just kind of fate happened.
You seem to be getting a lot of that.
No.
You're like a cooler version of Forrest Gump.
Well, stuff just happens, and I was open to it. Yeah, sure. While I'm out there, I'll spend the day with Jerry. They filmed that series of scenes until about 9 o'clock at night.
Just because Kramer kept screwing his lines up?
Well, no, they had carpenters and all kinds of people that would build the sets, and they would do a scene and they'd do it again and different scenes. That particular day, it was all just Jerry and Kramer.
So it takes multiple days of all that just to shoot one episode?
They told me that one episode that you see being filmed, watched on TV, would take something like 8 weeks of filming.
Wow.
To get one episode.
Wow. Because the episodes are, what, 45 minutes, 40 minutes?
30 minutes.
30 minutes?
Yeah.
Wow. I guess if they're just going to be building custom furniture on set and rewriting people's lines.
And everyone is just hanging around while this stuff's happening. And then they'll say, okay, Jerry, we're ready for you here, and they're all kind of clowning around and so forth. But George wasn't there, and the gal, whatever. Elaine wasn't there.
Okay.
But it was just Kramer and Jerry. While they were creating the set for the scene, I was chatting with Jerry about Porsches, and Kramer was kind of walking around and stuff like that.
Just kind of being
and we
goofy.
all went to dinner like 7 o'clock that night and came back, and they continued shooting. And then at the end of the thing, they passed out cigars and they kind of had a party, and it was a fun experience.
That is so cool.
And he actually gave me his copy of the script. I have his copy of the script.
Wow. I mean, like, he did all this for you.
Yeah.
And at the end was he like, listen, Jack, I flew you out, I showed you my car collection, put you on Seinfeld, took you out to dinner, gave me cigars. Are you going to sell me the car?
No, he didn't bring the car up. Not long after that, I get a call from Carol, and she asked me, she said, Jack, how far are you from San Antonio? And I said, I don't know, 230 or 40 miles, something like that. And she said, well, now that the show is over, Jerry's doing stand-up things, and he's going to be doing a show in San Antonio, and he wanted to see if you wanted to come down and hang out between shows.
That is so cool.
So we hung out backstage with Jerry during the show and so forth, and took pictures. And so my boys, they thought that was pretty cool. And
It is.
Yeah. And so I was doing this vintage car rally in Colorado. I'd done it several times, and Jerry was through with the TV series and so forth. So I told Jerry about it, and he had heard about the event. The next week, I got a call from Carol, his assistant, and Carol said, Jack, Jerry was talking about something in Colorado, and he wants to do that. What does he have to do? So then I called the organizers of the event, which I knew very well at this time, to see about Jerry getting in, because it was an invitation deal. It was kind of funny because I called him and I said, hey, I've got a friend that wants to do the Colorado Grand this year, and what do we need to do to get him in? And she said, Jack, we'd love to help you. You're our friend, and we'd like to help you out, but there's a waiting list really long to people wanting to get in. And I said, oh, my friend's going to be very disappointed that he couldn't get in. Would you mind giving him a call and telling him what he's got to do to get on the waiting list or whatever like that? And she said, oh, I'll be happy to make that call for you. What's his name? So I said, well, his name is Jerry Seinfeld. And there was a silence. And she said, Jack, are you serious? And I said, yeah, Jerry wants to do the event. And she said, he's in. He all of a sudden went to the top of the list.
Well, I didn't know you had such an exciting history with Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, we went for a ride in the GT3. Jack gave me a pretty good demonstration of the acceleration and the braking of this car. So we're going to show you that footage now.
this is my therapy car. When things are sort of hectic or whatever like that, this will clear out your senses and sinuses and everything else.
Yes, I have one of those as well.
Yeah.
Not quite as fast as this, though.
Well, you need something like that to get you back to sanity.
Or just to help distract you from your frustrations.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't need this thrill every day, but once in a while, it is badass.
Absolutely. Making sure those brakes work too.
And phenomenal brakes, of course.
When I was doing some research on you, I read that for a brief period, Porsche had given you an allocation for a 959, but then declined it. What happened there?
I heard about the 959 project, which, you know, it sounded really intriguing, but none were coming to the U.S. And then I read where Al Holbert, who was a racer when I was a racer, he was working on a project to create a car called the 959S. It was going to be a way to get some into the United States under the racing exclusion, the race car exclusion. The whole reason for making the S was to try to get it into the US as a race car. Calling it a race car, which really was not a race car. But they felt that if they made the S seem like a race car, they could come in under the race car exclusion.
Okay.
They didn't have to crash test race cars. I was able to get a contract for one of the 28 959S's, okay? Required a $60,000 non-refundable deposit. The spec on the 959S was, it was not street legal, no warranty. You had to sign a release saying that it was a race car and it was dangerous and you could die driving it. So this was about a 18 month or 24 month process where they built the cars, took a while, then they flew 8 of them to Pennsylvania to be inspected by the DOT. So the DOT goes out to inspect them. Now these were regular 959 luxury cars with the radio taken out, with a roll bar bolted in, not even welded in. This was purely a disguised 959 luxury or comfort version designed to pull the wool over the eyes of the DOT. So the DOT inspected them and they basically said, these are not race cars. These are absolutely not race cars. If they come into the country, the roll bar will be unscrewed, taken out, somebody will stick a radio in it, and we're going to see these on the road. So the Department of Transportation said, nope, they're not coming in.
Oh.
The DOT, they send me a letter saying, we know you bought the car, and they said, should you attempt to bring it into the U.S.? And then they listed about 4 or 5 things, bad things that would happen to me if I tried. One included confiscating the car and some severe fines and all that, penalties and so forth.
Who knew that they would be this focused on just one vehicle?
And they had the serial number of my car.
It's too bad you didn't get that car because I know you and I know that you would have kept it.
Yeah, oh yeah, that would have been a really amazing car. How about a little tour?
I would absolutely love that.
Why don't we start at the beginning?
Okay, let's do it.
The beginning of this craziness started in 1976, 46 years ago. I bought this. This is a 1970 914-6. Back when I was driving race cars, I met a guy who was a great racer, who was also a great engine builder, and he had a lot of experience with the 914s. So he built a motor for this, which doubled the horsepower.
Oh, really?
Roughly, yeah.
What motor did you start off with?
It started out with a 2-liter 911 engine. This is a 2.5. The 2-liter had about 110 horsepower, which is really not very fast.
Right.
People talked about how fast the 914-6s were. They're wrong. It was not very fast. They handled great, of course, but this has something over 200 horsepower.
Very nice.
So it makes it a really fun little car. And in doing that modification, we flared the rear wheel wells very slightly.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, to accommodate bigger tires.
Okay, so is it this lip right here that you increased?
Originally, the rear wheel well was like this.
Okay. I mean, it looks completely factory.
Yeah. I didn't want anything real radical.
What shade of blue is this?
It's called Adriatic Blue.
Adriatic blue. Was this like an actual Porsche factory shade?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, Adriatic Blues. So this I bought new in 1989. So it's 33 years old, and 911 Speedster. And this was to replicate the 356 Speedsters with the low slanted windshield and lightweight, relatively not lightweight.
Well, how much does it weigh?
Weighs about 2,600 pounds. So it's pretty light.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So this was at the very end of the G-body production. This was late '89. And they made a little over 2,000 for the world and a little over 800 for the U.S. You rarely see these out on the street. They're mostly tucked away in collections. And this has 14,000 original miles.
Wow.
The 356, I bought this in 1994. And it didn't look anything like this the way I bought it. I bought it from a friend of mine who lived in Oregon. It was totally trashed.
So this is, it's a pre-A, right?
This is a pre-A. As a matter of fact, this particular car is the next to the last pre-A car built.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In 1955, the importer of Porsche, Max Hoffman, he was a great marketer, and he convinced Porsche that these should have names rather than numbers. You know, they were 356s, but for marketing reasons, they badged these as Continentals. Well, he did that without checking to learn that Ford had the name Continental reserved for the Lincoln Continental. Yeah. So before the end of the year, they were informed by Ford that they should discontinue that name. So this became a one-year only car, the Continentals. So this is the badging.
Oh, wow. I've never seen that.
Yeah, and so this is a sunroof, which was a factory option, and not many people ordered them, so there's not many sunroofs out there. And when I bought this, I wanted to make it what is termed an outlaw car. And a friend of mine, Rod Emery, is the guy that started the whole outlaw movement. He builds these custom cars for huge money, and he has a long waiting list, and he created his own badge, and these are numbered, and you cannot buy these badges. These only go on his creations. Well, he's a friend of mine. He came to town one time, and he said, let's go to your garage, and he actually installed one of his badges on this car.
What shade of silver is this?
Well, originally it was called fish silver. That was the Porsche color. Now, you cannot formulate fish silver any longer because of the chemicals involved and processes and all environmental issues. And so we got as close as we could.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's definitely got like a hint of like maybe amber or something to it when you see the lights reflecting in it.
Yeah.
And you've won several awards with this car, haven't you?
Yeah, this car has won the best of show at virtually every significant car show in the area.
Oh, wow.
So the next in line that I still have is this 85 911 air-cooled car. And I've had this about 14, 15 years, something like that. This is all original, never been painted, never been wrecked or anything. I bought this from a fellow outside of Chicago and drove it home, and I've been driving it ever since.
How long of a drive was that?
It took me a day and a half. I don't know. I was just having fun.
And nothing went wrong with it on the drive?
Heck no.
That's great.
These 911s are so bulletproof, and I used to be so much into air-cooled cars and really never thought I'd own a water-cooled car until 2016, I bought the white 997.2. If I only was going to have one car, it would be a water cooler rather than an air cooler.
So if you had to get rid of your whole collection and could only keep one car, this is the one?
This would be it.
Wow.
It had 19,000 miles on it when I bought it,
okay.
and it has 42 now.
Oh, so you stacked them up.
So I drove it to Monterey, California, drove it to Utah, and it'll cruise at any speed. Well, you have one, you know it's. And then about 3 years ago, I had an opportunity. This is a 996 turbo. A good longtime friend of mine had this in his garage over at our Plano garage project, and I'd seen it, and it's like, oh man, I love that car, and I lusted it after it, and there came a time when he decided to get rid of it, so he called me and said, Jack, I know, you'd like to have this car. I said, absolutely. So he threw out a number, and I said, I'll be there in 30 minutes. He had done so many improvements, performance-wise and so forth. Bigger turbo, better brakes, wheels, the exhaust.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I'm not a 996 fan, but this car is really pretty. It just looks like a blast to drive.
It is so much fun. So not too long after I bought that, I bought the GT3. This is a 2018.
You're the original owner, right?
I'm the original owner. I bought it new at Park Place. I just thought it was a good investment, a good idea to pick one up.
Well, I mean, what did you say you paid for it? Like 160, 170?
162.
I mean, they're over two. You could sell this car for over two right now, easily.
Easy. It's like driving it for free if I wanted to sell it,
100%.
which I don't.
Yeah, I mean, you took me in a drive for this, and do not sell it.
You what?
Don't sell this car.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't drive it every day, but every once in a while, it's a thrill.
Yeah.
For the U.S. market, they made around 700.
That's it?
Of the Tourings. Yeah.
That's nothing.
Oh yeah, not very many. You hardly ever see a Touring, a 991 Touring. It only has a little over 3,000 miles on it in 4 years.
You got to get that mileage up, man.
I know. Well, it's like I want to drive this.
I know. It's not easy. It's not easy being Jack Griffin.
It's hard spreading the miles around.
When did your racing career end?
The last race was Sebring 12-hour in 1986.
Okay. And what have you been up to since then?
Some real estate projects here and there. I was an office building developer when I was young, and worked for a very large real estate development company based in Dallas, and had the good fortune of being a partner in the company when I was 28 years old and in charge of developing suburban office buildings in the Dallas area. So I did one office building development in partnership with Roger Staubach. We were partners in building. I had a very large garage at my house. I had a 3,000 square foot garage in my home, and I had 16 Porsches at the time, and it was fun. But it was only fun when people came over.
Right.
I mean, I was there by myself.
You need someone to share it with.
Exactly. It's like a pool table. How much fun is that by yourself?
Very
not
little.
much. But I had the idea from my real estate background and my, car passion, that what the world needed was a place for people to enjoy their cars away from their home with other people. I had an architect friend of mine kind of refine the idea, put it on, pen to paper and so forth, and we played with concept and so forth, and came up with the idea, which ultimately became Garages of Texas.
Okay.
It turned out to be an unbelievable success. Before construction was even finished, I was able to sell every unit. It was 69
That's
garages.
Great. So how many facilities have you completed?
We've completed 9 locations, 6 in Dallas, 2 in Houston, 1 in Austin, and we just started our 10th one in Houston, actually.
Okay.
The resale potential as an investment has been unbelievable.
Yeah, they've definitely, because I've looked into trying to buy them a few times, and they've definitely gone up in value.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So there's no downside. I mean, you buy a garage, you decorate it, you enjoy it, and if you want to exit,
You're going to make money.
You can sell it in a matter of hours.
It's a win-win-win.
It's a win-win all the way through. But we have recently actually changed our name to Garages of America.
Garages of America, huh?
So
has that become completely official now?
It will be. It's becoming official.
You heard it here first. Garages
of America.
So, just from knowing you, talking to you, and doing research on you, I mean, you've really lived a pretty remarkable life.
Well, I appreciate your comment. To me, it's just, I've just lived my life, and it just, I've been open to going in different directions, and I never particularly had any goals of where I want to end up.
That's why you're like a cooler version of Forrest Gump.
Stuff
just happened to you,
yeah,
but it was cool.
They just sort of pushed me in.
You just ended up driving in Lamar.
Yeah, pushed me in different directions. And like I may have mentioned, I grew up in far South Texas. My dad was an auto mechanic. And so I was from a real blue collar family. Had the good fortune of playing tennis. Tennis was sort of my ticket to go to a good school, and went to Baylor. Played on the Baylor tennis team and had a scholarship, and then moved to Dallas right out of college, and been in Dallas ever since. And so I've seen, and I got involved in real estate development, so I've seen a lot of growth in Dallas, and was sort of swept into that wave of development and so forth. And along the way, through cars, tennis, and real estate, have been so fortunate to meet some really amazing people, and it's all about relationships.
It is.
It's all about
the value of your life comes from your relationships.
It really does. I mean, they can talk about education or talk about IQ or whatever. I firmly believe it's mostly about relationships.
Looking back on everything you've done, what sticks out the most to you? What are like the highlights of it all?
Well, of course, the ultimate thing about my life would be my family.
And that's great. After all the things that you've done, if you could say that your family's been your biggest accomplishment, I mean, there's a lot to that.
Well, there are a lot of people that they consider their net worth, what they have in the bank or their investments or that sort of thing. To me, my net worth is like people and relationships.
If you can feel that way, then you've won life.
Yeah,
you've won life.
If I had to only have my little Mazda Miata and that's the only thing I drove, I would be okay with that, because I've got great relationship, great family. It's all about our relationship.
It is. If you, like I just said, if you feel that way, then you've won life.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride, and I hope the ride lasts a lot longer. But you never know what things happen.
Look, if all these races didn't kill you, you're probably going to be fine for a while.
Hopefully.
You've had a pretty good racing career. You had probably a better tennis career.
Yep.
Right. Good family, great car collection, successful garage, automotive establishment. Is there anything else you want to accomplish in life?
Not really. I mean,
something cool just going to come to you like it's been doing the last several decades?
I think if something is supposed to happen, it'll happen. I'm open to it, whatever it might be. I mean, I'm always open for an adventure. And I've been single for a long. Unfortunately, I was married and we were divorced 40 years ago.
So you're single now?
I'm single.
Ladies, if you're looking for a good man.
There you go. Yeah, I'm out here.
Jack Griffin.
I'm having fun in my garage, Yeah, I mean, when I was your age, it never even occurred to me how long how much time is left or anything like that. I mean, I was just doing stuff and, having great experiences and stuff. And so I lost an older brother 2.5 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And when you start losing people that are close to you relationship wise, and then you really like, whoa, how much time is left? I mean, in 10 years I'll be almost 90 if I make it that long. 10 years goes by and such a flash.
You know what, the older you get, the faster it goes by. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's outrageous. I hate that, but that's the way it is.
Well, Jack, thank you so much for taking the time and coming onto the show and telling us all of your incredible stories. If you're interested in getting a luxury garage, check out Garages of Texas and Garages of America. And for more original automotive content, click here to subscribe.